Rejected Omega found a wolf bleeding at the door. Healing revealed the Alpha King. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character. Sophia Grayson had always known the world saw her as less than nothing. She was an Omega, weak, and powerless in a world that valued strength above all else. Her pack had cast her aside years ago, and she had wandered from place to place, hiding her pain beneath a calm exterior. It was a cold night when everything changed for her. She had been walking the path to her small cottage, the wind biting at her skin when she saw him. A wolf, lying motionless on the ground. His fur was dark, almost black, and blood pooled around his body. He was huge, larger than any wolf she had ever seen, and something about him stirred a deep sense of urgency within her. Sophia hesitated for only a moment before rushing to his side. Her hands trembled as she gently cradled his head, feeling the warmth of his breath against her fingertips. He was alive, but barely. His breathing was shallow, his body cold to the touch. She knew what she had to do. Despite the fear gnawing at her, Sophia tore off part of her shawl and began to tend to his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. It was then, as she worked frantically to save him, that she felt something unexpected. A pulse of energy, deep inside her chest, radiated out through her fingertips as she pressed them against the wolf's side. She didn't understand it, but the moment she touched him, something powerful surged through her. The air around them seemed to hum, as if the very earth was responding to their connection. As she continued to heal him, Sophia noticed the wolf's wounds beginning to close, the bleeding slowing. She breathed a sigh of relief, but just as she did, the wolf's body shifted, his form changing before her eyes. The wolf's features twisted and melted into a man, tall and broad-shouldered, with wild black hair that framed a face marked by a scar. His eyes, however, remained the most startling, silver gray, like the moonlight that had guided Sophia through this forest. And then he spoke. "You saved me," he murmured, his voice deep and powerful. "I am Derek Blackwood, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, and you are my mate." I had no idea what to think when Derek Blackwood, the Alpha King, revealed his true identity to me. I sat back, trying to process the words he had just spoken. The man, no longer a wolf but a towering figure in front of me, still radiated an aura of power that was impossible to ignore. His silver eyes bore into mine, a silent command for me to understand. But how could I, a broken Omega, be the mate of the Alpha King? I felt as if I were trapped in a dream, but everything around me was too real. His presence was overwhelming, yet strangely comforting, as though a part of me had always known he would find me. The night was still, save for the distant rustling of leaves in the trees and the faint sounds of creatures in the woods. Derek's body, still in his human form, was healing faster than any normal man would. The blood that had stained his fur had already disappeared, and he stood before me, fully alive, fully aware. But it wasn't just the sight of his recovery that made my heart race. It was his words, the weight of them, the way they settled deep within my chest. His mate. Me? I had lived my life thinking I was insignificant, weak, unworthy of love or attention. Being an Omega had always meant being at the bottom of the pack, ignored, pushed aside. I had never imagined that someone like him, someone with so much power and strength, could ever look at me, let alone claim me as his mate. "I know it's a lot to take in," Derek said, his voice gentle, though it still held that commanding tone. "But it's true. You've healed me, and that means something. You are my fated mate, and we are bound by something greater than either of us." I wanted to speak, to say something, but the words caught in my throat. My emotions were too tangled, too overwhelming. How could this be real? A part of me wanted to run, to escape the strange pull I felt toward him, but another part of me couldn't move, couldn't tear myself away from the magnetic force that was Derek Blackwood. He stepped closer, his large form looming over me, but there was no threat in his presence. It was as if he were waiting, giving me the space to process everything. "Sophia," he said, using my name for the first time, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. You don't need to be afraid. I won't force you into anything. But I need you to understand that this bond between us is real. We're connected, whether we're ready or not. The mention of the bond made me feel both terrified and comforted. I had never felt so exposed in my life. Yet there was something in the way he spoke that made me feel like I wasn't as broken as I thought. The wind blew softly through the trees, and I closed my eyes, letting the cool air calm my racing thoughts. When I opened them again, I looked up at Derek, seeing him not just as a king, but as someone who had endured a fate as heavy as my own. What happens now? I asked, my voice shaky, unsure of what I was supposed to do or say next. Derek smiled faintly, a soft, almost sad smile. Now, he said, we start the journey together. I don't expect you to understand it all right away, but I want to make sure you know that I'm here. We'll take it one step at a time, Sophia. You don't have to do this alone. His words, his reassurance, wrapped around me like a warm blanket. I didn't know what the future held, or if I was truly ready for what came next. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't walking this path alone. Derek was here, and whether I was ready or not, I knew that this was only the beginning of something far greater than I had ever imagined. I had no idea what to expect when Derek took my hand, but the warmth of his touch was enough to ground me. The cool night air seemed to melt away the doubts that had been swirling in my mind. He had claimed me, and though my heart was racing with a mix of fear and excitement, I couldn't deny the connection I felt to him. It was undeniable, like the threads of fate pulling us together. As we walked side by side, the silence between us was comfortable, though there was still so much I needed to understand. Derek, I began softly, my voice trembling slightly. Why me? Why did you choose me as your mate? I couldn't look him in the eyes, afraid of the answer. I had always seen myself as insignificant, a mere omega. He could have chosen anyone, someone stronger, someone worthy of his power. But instead, he had chosen me, and that thought made my heart beat even faster. Derek stopped walking, causing me to look up at him. His silver gray eyes were steady, searching mine as if he were trying to find the right words. It's not a choice, Sophia, he said quietly. It's fate. We are bound by something far beyond our understanding. The moment I shifted, the moment you touched me, I knew you were the one. His words were like a balm to my soul, soothing the insecurities that had plagued me for so long. I wanted to ask more, to question how this could be real, but something in his expression told me that now wasn't the time. I don't understand, I whispered, my voice barely audible. How can we be fated? I'm nothing. Derek's hand gently cupped my face, tilting my head up so that I could meet his gaze. You're not nothing, Sophia. You're everything. I've watched my pack struggle for years, but I've never felt a bond like this, not even with the strongest wolves. You healed me, and that's something no one else could do. We are destined to be together, whether we want it or not. His words left me breathless, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the way he spoke. There was no doubt in his voice, no hesitation. It was as if he had been waiting for me all his life. I didn't ask for this, I said, a little too sharply, my emotions bubbling up. I didn't ask for any of this. I was fine on my own, Derek. I didn't need anyone. He looked at me with a soft smile, a mixture of amusement and understanding in his eyes. I know, he replied gently. You've been alone for so long, but you don't have to be anymore. We are a team now. You don't have to carry the weight of the world by yourself. I'm here for you. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard, and for the first time in my life, I felt as though someone truly understood me. We continued walking, the moonlight casting a soft glow on the path before us. The forest around us seemed to come alive in the quiet, as if the trees themselves were whispering our secrets. I had no idea what the future held, but with Derek by my side, I felt like I could face anything. The uncertainty that had once defined my life now seemed distant, replaced by something new, hope. As we reached the edge of the forest, I realized that I wasn't just following him. I was choosing this path, this life, with him. So what happens now? I asked, looking up at him again. Derek paused, and his gaze softened as he took my hand in his. Now, we take this one step at a time. Together. His words settled over me like a promise, and for the first time, I truly believed that everything would be okay. Maybe fate had brought us together, but I had a feeling that we were going to make our own future from here on out. I had never thought I would find myself here, standing beside Derek Blackwood, the Alpha King, in a place where nothing felt real and everything felt possible. It had only been a few days since that fateful moment in the forest, when I had healed him, and everything had changed. But now, as we stood on the edge of the Northern Territory, I felt the weight of what was to come. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel Derek's presence like a steady force beside me, unwavering, powerful. We had traveled far from the village, and now, as the sun began to set behind the distant mountains, we were approaching his stronghold, the heart of his kingdom. What happens now? I asked softly, my voice barely above a whisper. Derek turned to me, his silver eyes studying me with a tenderness I had not expected. Now you're part of my world, he said, his voice calm but filled with a certain intensity. And you'll be safe here. No one will hurt you again. His words were a promise, one I wasn't sure I was ready to accept, but I also knew they meant more than just safety. They meant that my life was about to change forever. As we crossed the threshold into his territory, I could feel the shift in the air. The woods seemed to part for us, the trees towering high above, their branches creating a natural archway. The scent of pine and earth filled the air, and in the distance, I could hear the faint sound of wolves howling, as if they were welcoming us home. Derek's presence was like a shield around me, his energy pushing away any lingering fear. I was no longer just an Omega. I was his mate, and the reality of that was starting to settle in. We continued on in silence, the path winding through the forest until we reached the gates of the Blackwood Citadel. The massive stone walls loomed in front of us, and as we approached, the guards standing at the entrance bowed their heads in respect. Derek, the Alpha King, was home. But I, Sophia Grayson, was not sure what my place was in this new life. As we entered the citadel, I couldn't help but feel the eyes of the pack upon me. The wolves, their eyes glowing in the dim light, watched us closely, their expressions a mix of curiosity and reverence. It was clear that Derek was not just a king to them. He was a force of nature. Don't be nervous, Derek said, his voice low and reassuring as he squeezed my hand. These are my people, and they will respect you as they respect me. I nodded, though the feeling of being watched was unsettling. We walked through the grand hall of the citadel, the high ceilings and towering stone walls making everything feel so much bigger than I was used to. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting a warm glow across the room. At the far end, a throne sat in the center, its presence commanding. This is where we'll stay for now, Derek said, guiding me to a smaller room off to the side. You can rest here. No one will disturb you. The room was simple but elegant, with large windows that looked out over the vast forest. The bed was covered in rich, dark fabrics, and a soft rug lay in the center of the room. It was nothing like the small, humble cottage I had left behind, but it felt like a sanctuary. It's beautiful, I whispered, taking it all in. Derek stood by the door, watching me with a thoughtful expression. You deserve more than this, Sophia. I know this is overwhelming, but you're not alone anymore. I'm here, and I will always protect you. His words, so full of sincerity, made my heart flutter. But at the same time, I felt a sense of responsibility weighing on me. Could I truly live up to what he was offering? Could I be the mate of an Alpha King? I don't know if I'm ready for all of this, I confessed, turning to him. I've spent so long alone, Derek. I don't know how to be a part of this world. Derek stepped forward, closing the distance between us. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be yourself. That's all I've ever wanted. His words wrapped around me like a comfort, and for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to relax. Good morning, he said, his voice warm and calm, like a steady anchor in a storm. He looked every bit the powerful Alpha King he was, but the gentleness in his gaze softened the intensity that usually surrounded him. How did you sleep? I slept well, I replied, trying to hide the nervousness that still lingered in my chest. Better than I have in a long time. Derek smiled, and it was a smile that reached his eyes, making them glow even brighter. He stepped closer, sitting at the edge of the bed. That's good to hear. You deserve peace, Sophia. I couldn't help but feel a lump in my throat at his words. His kindness was overwhelming, and I didn't know how to respond. I had spent so long guarding my heart, afraid of getting hurt, that now, when someone like Derek offered me everything, I wasn't sure how to handle it. Derek, I said, my voice barely a whisper. How can you be so sure? I don't understand. You're the Alpha King, and I'm just an Omega. I don't know if I can live up to what you expect from me. Derek's expression softened, and he gently cupped my face in his hands, tilting my head up to meet his gaze. Sophia, listen to me. There is no expectation. There is no pressure. All I need is you, exactly as you are. You are my mate, and that is enough. You don't have to change for me. His words, so simple yet so profound, made my heart swell. I had been running from my own worth for so long, and here he was, showing me that I didn't have to be anything more than myself. But what about everything else? I asked, still uncertain. What about your kingdom, your people? How does our bond fit into all of that? Derek chuckled softly, brushing a strand of hair from my face. You are now a part of everything, Sophia. You're not just my mate. You're my Luna, the future queen of the Northern Territories. And together, we'll face whatever comes our way. But that doesn't mean you have to be perfect. You don't have to take on everything at once. I looked at him, my heart racing with a mixture of fear and excitement. Could I truly accept this? Could I stand by his side and be the person he believed I could be? Derek saw the hesitation in my eyes and leaned in, his forehead gently touching mine. You don't have to have all the answers right now. We'll take it one step at a time. Together. I closed my eyes, letting his words wash over me. For the first time, I felt like I had a place in this world, a purpose. I wasn't just a broken Omega anymore. I was his, and that meant something. I wasn't sure what the future held, but with Derek by my side, I knew I wasn't walking alone. Okay, I whispered, my voice steadying. I'll try. I'll be here, with you. Derek smiled, his hand still resting on my cheek. That's all I need, Sophia. Together, we'll build something stronger than anything either of us could have imagined alone. And in that moment, as his hand held mine, I felt a warmth spread through me, something I had never felt before. It was the beginning of something beautiful, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to embrace it. I spent the next few days adjusting to my new life in the Blackwood Citadel, though the sense of surrealism never fully left me. Every corner of the Citadel seemed to pulse with the life of its pack, the air thick with power and history. I still couldn't quite believe I was now part of it all. Derek, the Alpha King, had made it clear that I was not just a visitor here. I was his Luna, the future queen of his territory. It was a title I wasn't sure I was ready to bear, but I was determined to try. One evening, after Derek had spent most of the day in council meetings, he returned to our chambers, a tired yet content look on his face. His silver eyes softened as he looked at me, and for a moment, it felt like everything outside our room disappeared. You're still up, he said, smiling as he walked toward me. I had been sitting by the window, staring out at the moonlit landscape. The view was breathtaking, with the Citadel's stone walls framed by the dark silhouette of the forest, the distant howl of wolves a reminder that this place was alive in a way I had never known before. I couldn't sleep, I admitted, looking up at him. I've been thinking about everything. Derek nodded, sitting down beside me. His presence was both calming and overwhelming, a mixture of strength and warmth that seemed to pull me in. It's a lot to take in, he said softly, his hand brushing against mine. But we'll face it together, Sophia. You don't have to do this alone. I looked at him, his words settling in my heart like a promise. I know, I whispered. I never imagined anything like this. Being here, with you, in this world. It's so different from what I've known. Derek's smile was gentle, understanding. It's not just your world anymore. It's ours. You're not just my mate. You're my partner in everything. We make the decisions together, Sophia, and I will always stand by you. His words were everything I had needed to hear, but had been too afraid to ask for. The weight of responsibility, of being the Luna, had been heavy on my shoulders, but now, sitting beside him, I began to feel like maybe I could do this. Maybe we could do this. What do we do now? I asked quietly, my gaze dropping to our intertwined hands. Derek's fingers gently tightened around mine. Now, we build our future. We help lead this pack, protect them, and make sure that everyone is safe and valued. It won't always be easy, but we'll figure it out together. I nodded, feeling a sense of resolve settle in my chest. I didn't have all the answers, but with Derek by my side, I felt like I could face whatever challenges came our way. As the days passed, I started to settle into my role. The pack accepted me, though I could still feel the weight of their eyes on me at times. I was the Luna, Derek's chosen mate, and with that title came expectations. But Derek was there every step of the way, guiding me, supporting me. And slowly, I began to realize that this life, this strange, new world, was where I was meant to be. One evening, as we walked together through the Citadel's gardens, the moon hanging low in the sky, I realized that this was the first time in my life that I had felt truly at home. Do you ever miss it? I asked, glancing up at Derek. Your old life, before all of this. Derek looked down at me, a thoughtful expression on his face. I miss parts of it, he said after a moment. But being with you, having you by my side, makes all of that seem small. This, right here, is everything. His words filled me with warmth, and I leaned into him as we continued our walk. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like an outsider. I didn't feel like I was broken or lost. I was exactly where I was meant to be. And with Derek by my side, I knew that together, we would face whatever the future held. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: we would walk it together. I stood on the balcony of the Blackwood Citadel, watching as the last traces of sunlight faded behind the distant mountains. The wind gently tousled my hair, and I wrapped my arms around myself, still feeling the coolness of the evening. It had been weeks since Derek had claimed me as his mate, and yet, I still found myself adjusting to this new life. The responsibility of being his Luna, the future queen, weighed heavily on me, but each day, with Derek by my side, I felt more prepared to face it. It wasn't just the title that was new to me, it was everything. The pack, the Citadel, the way the wolves looked to me for guidance. It was overwhelming at times, but it was also inspiring. Derek had shown me a new world, one where I wasn't just an Omega, but someone important, someone who could make a difference. Sophia, Derek's voice broke through my thoughts. I turned to see him standing in the doorway, his presence as commanding as ever. You're out here again. He smiled, his silver eyes soft with concern. You need to rest. We have a long day ahead of us tomorrow. I smiled at him, though a part of me still couldn't fully relax. I had grown up in a world where I had to be vigilant, where I had to protect myself. Letting go of that fear was harder than I had expected. But with Derek, I was learning to trust again. I know, I said, stepping away from the railing. Sometimes I need to think, to process everything. Derek walked over to me, taking my hands in his. His touch was warm and grounding. I understand, but you don't have to carry it all alone. We're a team, Sophia. You've got me, and I've got you. His words were a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. For so long, I had been alone, but now, with Derek, I had a partner. I know, I said again, my voice softer now. But it's still a lot. I want to do right by the pack. By you. Derek chuckled lightly, a sound that always made my heart flutter. You're already doing right by me. You don't have to try so hard. Just be yourself. That's all I've ever wanted. I felt my heart soften at his words. He made it sound so simple, but for me, it was harder than it seemed. I had always felt like I wasn't enough. Like no matter how hard I tried, I would never measure up. But Derek never made me feel like that. He never made me feel like I was less. Thank you, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Derek squeezed my hands gently. There's nothing to thank me for. You're my Luna, and I will stand by you, always. I looked up at him, meeting his gaze, and for the first time, I truly believed his words. I wasn't just an Omega anymore. I was his mate. I was his Luna, and I could do this. Together, we would face whatever came our way. The road ahead was uncertain, but with Derek by my side, I was ready to walk it. As we stood there, holding each other's gaze, I realized that this was where I belonged. This was my new home, and Derek was the one I was meant to be with. The Alpha King, my mate, my partner. And for the first time in my life, I knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be. I woke up early the next morning, the soft light filtering through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. I hadn't realized how much I had come to appreciate the calm of this place. The Blackwood Citadel, once so overwhelming, now felt like a home. As I stretched and climbed out of bed, I glanced at the window where the morning sun kissed the tips of the trees, painting the forest in golden hues. I had never imagined a life like this, one filled with purpose and belonging. It still felt surreal at times. As I stepped into the adjoining room, I found Derek sitting at a large wooden table, looking over some documents. He was so focused, yet there was something peaceful about the way he held himself. He looked up as I entered, a smile softening his features. "Good morning, Sophia," he greeted, his voice warm, grounding me in the present. "Morning," I replied, moving toward him. His gaze lingered on me for a moment longer than usual, his eyes filled with a mix of admiration and something deeper, something I had come to recognize as love. "You're beautiful," he said, his voice low but clear. My heart skipped a beat at his words. I had grown so used to hiding myself, thinking I wasn't worthy of compliments. But with Derek, I was beginning to believe them. I smiled shyly, sitting down across from him. "You're always saying that." Derek chuckled softly, setting down the papers he had been reading. "It's true every time I say it." His words settled in the space between us, a comforting presence that made the world outside feel far away. "I'm glad we're doing this together," I said, my voice steady as I looked at him. "I feel like I'm starting to understand this life, this world. With you by my side, I think I can do it." Derek reached across the table, taking my hand in his. His touch was warm, reassuring. "You're already doing it, Sophia. You've been doing it all along." His words filled me with a sense of purpose I hadn't realized I had been missing. It was as if he had given me permission to be myself, to accept my role, to embrace the future that was unfolding before us. "What happens now?" I asked, my mind shifting from the comfort of the moment to the reality of the responsibilities that awaited us. Derek leaned back in his chair, his fingers still lightly holding mine. "Now we move forward. The pack is strong, but we need to strengthen it further. We'll lead together, ensuring that every wolf in this territory is treated with the respect they deserve. We'll build a future that's built on trust, loyalty, and unity. And with you by my side, I know we can do it." His confidence, his unwavering belief in us, made the future seem less daunting. I had been afraid of failing, of not living up to expectations. But with Derek, I felt like I could face anything. As we sat there in silence, the weight of the world no longer felt like something I had to carry alone. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel afraid. I wasn't just an Omega anymore. I was his Luna. I was his equal. And together, we would build a kingdom that would thrive, a kingdom where love, loyalty, and unity would reign. "I'm ready," I said softly, looking up at Derek. "Whatever comes, I'm ready to face it with you." Derek's smile grew wider, and his grip on my hand tightened slightly. "I'm glad," he said, "because we are stronger together." I woke up to the sound of the wind rustling through the trees outside the Blackwood Citadel. The sun had barely risen, casting soft rays of gold over the landscape, and the air was crisp, signaling the arrival of another busy day. I had grown accustomed to the rhythm of this life, to the quiet moments shared with Derek, and to the steady beat of our journey together. As I stretched and sat up in bed, I couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose that I had never known before. In the months since Derek had claimed me as his mate, I had grown into my role as Luna, though it still felt like I was learning something new every day. I had always been an outsider, an Omega who had been cast aside, but now, I was part of something greater, something that was mine. "Sophia?" Derek's voice, deep and comforting, pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to find him standing in the doorway of our chambers, his tall frame silhouetted by the light from the hall. "Good morning," he said, his voice soft but filled with the usual authority that came naturally to him. He was always there, a steady presence that made everything feel right. "Good morning," I replied, smiling as he stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. Derek had that way about him, making everything feel safe, making everything feel like it would be okay. "How are you this morning?" he asked, moving toward me and sitting down beside me on the bed. I looked into his eyes, and for a moment, I saw everything. The strength, the vulnerability, the love that had grown between us. "I'm good," I said, though I wasn't sure if that was entirely true. There were days when doubt crept in, when the weight of my new responsibilities as Luna seemed too much to bear. But Derek never made me feel like I wasn't enough. "Are you ready for today?" Derek asked, his voice gentle but tinged with an urgency I knew well. Today was an important day. It was the day the pack would gather for the annual meeting, where Derek would address the wolves, where we would solidify our place as leaders of this land. I nodded, though a part of me still felt the nerves twist in my stomach. I had never been in a position like this before. "I think so," I said, taking a deep breath to steady myself. "I know you are," Derek said, his smile reassuring. You've grown so much, Sophia. I'm proud of you. His words, simple as they were, meant the world to me. I had always struggled with feeling inadequate, but with Derek, I was beginning to understand that I didn't have to be perfect. I just had to be myself. Thank you, I whispered, feeling a warmth spread through me. I couldn't have done it without you. Derek's hand reached for mine, his fingers intertwining with mine as he gave me a reassuring squeeze. You've always had it in you, he said, his gaze unwavering. You just needed someone to believe in you. His words made my heart swell with emotion. For so long, I had doubted myself, unsure of my place in the world. But with Derek, I didn't have to question it anymore. I knew exactly where I belonged. As we prepared for the meeting, Derek and I spoke quietly, going over the plans for the day. He was calm, confident, and I took comfort in his presence. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't facing it alone. As we made our way to the grand hall, where the pack was gathering, I felt a wave of anticipation wash over me. The citadel was bustling with energy, wolves moving about, preparing for the day's events. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me, but this time, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a responsibility I was ready to bear. Derek stood beside me, his presence grounding me. As we entered the hall, the pack fell silent, their eyes shifting between Derek and me. He was the Alpha King, and I was his Luna. Together, we were the future of the Blackwood pack, and I was ready to embrace that future. Derek's voice rang out, strong and steady as he addressed the pack, and I stood beside him, my heart swelling with pride. I was no longer just the Omega I had once been. I was Sophia Grayson, the Luna of the Blackwood pack, and I was ready to lead, to fight for our future. Together, Derek and I would ensure that this pack, this family, would thrive. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew that as long as we had each other, we would face it head on.